first, we are going to cover thought groups. What is a thought group? So, thought groups are verbal punctuation. It actually makes your speech more understandable because it will allow you, or it forces you to pause in between words to give impact to what you are saying. You can recognize a thought group when you hear a strongly stressed word, just like what I did there, or a sweep of melody when they're talking, and a pause. All right. So that's an indication that that is a thought group. So a strongly stressed word, and then a sweep of melody and a pause. So in the simplest terms, thought groups occur when you break down a long sentence with a short pause for easier listening. They're often grammatically accompanied by, if you see there in, let's say in text, if you see commas or periods, that is a thought group. Although commas and periods can be considered as thought groups, it's not always the case, but it's a good indication. To identify a thought group, make sure that you listen to the speaker if they pause, and then that can be considered as a thought group. Another thing that you would want to pay attention to would be focus words. So focus words, its function is it's usually included in a thought group, and it gives focus to what the sayer or what the speaker is saying. This allows the listener to identify the most important information that is being communicated. Now, with thought groups, everyone, even native speakers are not very particular with thought groups. So if you are having difficulties dividing your speech or your, let's say, the sentence that you are reading into thought groups, don't worry about that, because as you practice, you will become more effective, or you will become more used to speaking in thought groups. Also, remember, a thought group should have a pause before and after it. It should contain a focus word with more emphasis, and should have a change in pitch at the end, and should have the lengthened last syllable. What do I mean by that? This is an example of how you divide a paragraph or a sentence into thought groups. So, if you look at the sentence, if I read it this way, sometimes when I go to bed, I like to read beforehand. This allows my brain to calm down, and I prepare self for sleep. It doesn't really make sense. Now, in order for your speech or for what you're saying to make sense to your listeners, you make sure that you divide your sentence or your paragraph into thought groups. Okay, you don't just say the sentence in one go without any pause for breathing or for inhaling. Okay, so again, it's really important. So if you want to divide the paragraph into thought groups, this is the best way to do it. So you can say, you see the red vertical bars in between words. Those are the thought groups that in the paragraph. So remember, it should have a focus word, and then a sweep of melody, and also a pause towards the end. If I am going to read this, I'd read it as sometimes when I go to bed, I like to read beforehand. This allows my brain to calm down and prepare itself for sleep. It also helps me because I always overthink before I go to bed, and I stress about the details of the next day. So if you would actually read this, see the focus word like sometimes, bed, read, brain to calm down, prepare. These are your focus groups that must be stressed when you are dividing the sentence or the paragraph into thought groups. And then you will always have that sweep of melody so that your listeners will understand what you are saying, and also the pause. Remember, with thought groups, you are going to put stress on the word. You know that depending on where you put the stress in a thought group, the meaning of the sentence changes. If you see it, this is how the first one is divided, or the first way to divide the sentence. A woman, without her, man is nothing. If you say it like that, if this is how you divide your sentence into thought groups, you are saying that man is nothing without her woman, or without his woman, right? If you analyze the sentence, if you say it like a woman, without her, man is nothing. So the man is nothing without a woman, or without her, without his woman. That's the meaning of the first sentence, if you actually read it like that. Now, the meaning of the sentence would change if you use a different thought group. This is, I think, how Ming said it. A woman without her man is nothing. Okay, let me repeat that. A woman without her man is nothing. So this time you are saying that a woman means nothing if it doesn't have a man. Do you guys agree? So if you actually change the where you pause and where you divide your sentence into thought groups, the meaning also changes. See the difference of how just dividing the sentence into thought groups would actually make an impact to what you are saying. Okay, again, let's go ahead and review. If you say it like without any thought groups, monotonous, a woman without her man is nothing. So listeners won't be able to really understand what you're trying to say. But it's much clearer if you have your thought groups.